Let's begin, Bruce, if we can, by just talking about the significance of Ramaphosa going to this meeting. Is it important?
Well, I think it's relatively important for South Africa. He's not going to be sitting at the big table. He's not going to be one of the main meeting players. That honor, if you will, is held by the permanent G7 members, the European countries plus Canada plus the United States, the European Union, and Japan, as befits their economic circumstances and status. But what Cyril Ramaphosa does get is a chance to have conversations, not in that formulaic moment, but on the sidelines.
So he will be in a side room.
Well, he'll probably get to watch the
part
event.
Of the pictures and then be shunted off to a side
and then
room.
Get a chance to have one-on-ones as appropriate with the various heads of state from the various countries concerned. That actually is very important because those aren't the scrupulously scripted large events in which you have, the 7 or 8 people around the table and they all get 2 minutes and then, you do that kind of thing.
Sure.
I mean, what you're going to be watching, though, is a particularly fractious G7 meeting. As we were talking during the break, many people are describing this as the G6+1.
Yeah.
Countries that agree that international free trade under the WTO in a gradual but inexorable increased open trade framework. And then there's Donald Trump, who has been railing about tariffs, has been enacting tariffs under the President's authority, section, 231 of the trade bill from long ago, and arguing that with each of the trade partners, it's been an unfair, unequal relationship, that everybody has gotten the better of the U.S. and so these tariffs. But then tariffs beget other tariffs, and so that's where we are.
Yeah. And frankly, he has been implementing his agenda, the agenda that got him elected as president of the 45th president of the United States. So let's talk about the importance of this gathering. We were talking earlier about the fact that this used to be the G8, which has now become the G7. But now we're talking potential about it becoming the G6+1 or -1, depending on how Trump behaves. Is it still important that these guys are gathering and talking?
Well, it's important, obviously, that the various heads of government get to talk about issues that they agree on, as well as the areas where they don't. I don't see it shrinking to a formal G6, obviously. I mean, that would be bizarre to leave the U.S. out of an organization, out of a gathering that it helped to found. But what it does mean is that there's a fissure, there's a split between the other nations and the U.S. On some rather fundamental issues about whether or not trade opening and the ability to move it more effectively is something that's inexorable, or should it be rolled back and regulated more thoroughly, better, stronger, bigger, higher, harder tariffs? As a result, when they issue their final communique, as they have to, one of two things is going to happen. It's either going to be a communique that is so bland that almost anything would fit there, or it's going to be, and we disagreed strongly on, but vigorously agreed to find further common purpose kind of thing.
But frankly, with Trump, Bruce, I think all of us who have been watching this know that, sorry, I'm going to quote Donald Rumsfeld here, there are no knowns with Trump, because potentially he could walk away. And we could have a situation where there's perhaps no communique for the first time in the history of the G7.
Well, I think there'll still be a communique. It just may be.
To say we disagree.
It may be very bland, or it simply says there were areas where we couldn't agree. But you say walk away. There's a theory in Washington still, which now we're only talking about tomorrow morning, right?
Sure.
That Donald Trump will decide that studying for the meeting with Kim Jong-un that takes place on the 12th in Singapore is so important and so momentous for him and his presidency that he'll skip the G7 and let Mike Pence, the vice president, go instead. Let Mike Pence, with his stone face, take all the abuse that may be hurled while he sits home finally looking at the briefing books that have been prepared. Because, I mean, up until this moment, I mean, it's been something of a despairing thing for some of the advisors, at least, that he's not focused on this meeting with Kim Jong-un, that he figures he can do it entirely on the basis of flying by the seat of his pants on the grounds that he's a superb negotiator and he can out-negotiate anybody.
Yeah.
If you believe that, then you have to deal with the fact that Kim Jong-un has negotiated him and his administration into a position of equivalence in the international scene.
Before you leave, I want us to talk about the Kims. But I just wanted to find out, would it be a disaster if Mike Pence sat at that table rather than Donald Trump?
Well, I don't think it'll be a disaster.
It could actually be better.
It might actually be better because Mike Pence is not quite the same lightning rod that Donald Trump is, at least internationally.
Okay, talk about Kim quickly.
All right, well, Kim Jong-un is the 30-something head of a small, secretive government, and it's the last hereditary communist monarchy left on the planet. Well, ever since Castro is gone, look at it that way. But since his grandfather's time, they have been craving the ability to turn North Korea into an equal partner with the United States. And now, of course, that gift is upon us. And they have spent an enormous amount of intellectual capital in their government trying to figure out how to maneuver further within that circumstance.
Will it happen?
Well, the meeting, almost certainly at this point. Will there be a big, all-embracing deal? There'll be a photograph. There'll be a handshake. There may be a kiss-kiss and a hug-hug. There'll be an agreement to talk about future discussions by other people lower down the food chain to work out deals that will matter. One thing that has been mooted, and I'll just leave it out there, somebody has been suggesting that one of the sweeteners Kim Jong-un might throw at the Trump administration is permission to allow a certain fast food chain to open up a franchise in Pyongyang. And just think about that for a minute. I won't mention the company because I don't, you know.
We will not mention the company, but I can see now where that would likely be going. Bruce, thank you.
Pleasure.
Brooks Spector, Associate Editor at the Daily Maverick.